Hey everybody, Mike and Moose here. Most modelers will tell you beginner kits are worse. But what if that wasn't actually the case at all? What if some of the reasons people avoid beginner kits don't have anything to do with the kit itself? By the end of this video, I'm going to tell you the one thing that really determines whether a kit is good or bad. And it may not be what you think. That's coming up next on Modeling with Mike. Alright, welcome back. And let's start by defining what people actually mean by quote-unquote beginner kits and some common complaints that people have about them. So let's talk about what we actually mean by beginner kits. Most manufacturers design these kits to be easier to build. They typically have fewer parts, simpler engineering, and clearer instructions, and fewer tiny or delicate parts. The goal is not to produce the most detailed model possible. It's to make the hobby more approachable and enjoyable, especially for someone who is still learning. Unfortunately, many people hear the word beginner and automatically assume it means poor quality. But are those really the same thing? That's the question we're going to explore today. And some of the common complaints about beginner kits are that they have poor detail, they have simplified parts, they have toy-like appearance, and they're less accurate than premium kits. So let's move on and discuss why beginner kits get criticized. And I've come up with 4 main reasons for that. Number 1, they have a lower parts count. One of the first things you notice about a beginner kit is that it actually has fewer parts. Manufacturers intentionally reduce the part count to make the build less intimidating and easier to complete. Instead of assembling the engine from dozens of pieces, it may be molded in one piece or may be omitted altogether. Many experienced modelers see this as a drawback because it limits the amount of detail. However, for someone new to the hobby, fewer parts mean fewer opportunities to make mistakes and a much smoother building experience. Number 2, beginner kits have simpler engineering. Beginner kits are usually designed with ease of assembly in mind. Parts are engineered to fit together with fewer complicated joints, alignment issues, or delicate sub-assemblies. In many cases, manufacturers sacrifice complexity in favor of reliability. Some experienced builders criticize this because they enjoy intricate construction and challenging assemblies. But for beginners, simpler engineering often means spending more time enjoying the build and less time troubleshooting fit problems. Number 3, less detail. This is probably the most common criticism. Beginner kits often feature softer surface detail, simplified cockpits or interiors, fewer photo etched or clear parts, and less intricate molding than premium kits. For modelers who enjoy adding every rivet and wire, this can feel disappointing. On the other hand, many of these details become far less noticeable once the model is painted, weathered, and displayed. A well-finished simple kit can often look far more impressive than a highly detailed kit that never gets completed. Number 4, beginner kits have fewer options. Advanced kits frequently include multiple decal schemes, optional weapons, different versions, open and closed panels, alternate parts, and other customization choices. Beginner kits tend to streamline those decisions. You may get one marking option, one configuration, and a straightforward assembly process. While some builders see this as limiting, it also reduces decision fatigue. Instead of wondering which version to build and worrying about choosing the right option, beginners can focus on developing the core skills of assembly, painting, and finishing. So yes, many of the criticisms are based on real differences. Beginner kits often do have fewer parts, simpler engineering, less detail, and fewer options. But here's the question. Do those differences make them worse or just different? Because once you start looking at what these kits do well, the answer isn't nearly as obvious as many people think. So let's look at the things beginner kits often do better, or in other words, do well. Number 1, beginner kits have a better fit. Many kits are engineered to go together as smoothly as possible. Since they're aimed at newcomers, manufacturers often prioritize clean, predictable fit over maximum complexity. Large locating pins, positive alignment features, and fewer tiny parts can make assembly much more forgiving. That doesn't mean that every beginner kit fits perfectly. But when a model goes together with minimal filling and sanding, it allows builders to spend much more time enjoying the hobby and less time fixing problems. Number 2, they have simpler assembly. A simpler build isn't necessarily an inferior build. Beginner kits are designed to reduce unnecessary complexity, making it easier to focus on the fundamentals. Instead of worrying about dozens of sub-assemblies, builders can concentrate learning essential skills like removing parts cleanly, eliminating seam lines, applying glue properly, painting, and decal application. Mastering these basics often contributes more to a great looking model than a few extra 100 pieces. Number 3, faster progress. One of the biggest motivators in any hobby is seeing progress. Beginner kits often allow you to move from sprues to a recognizable model much more quickly. That steady sense of accomplishment keeps enthusiasm high. Seeing a project come together encourages people to return to the workbench, and every completed model builds experience for the next one. Number 4, less frustration. Even experienced modelers become discouraged by kits with difficult fit, fragile parts, or overly complicated instructions. For someone just entering the hobby, those challenges can be enough to make them quit altogether. Beginner kits reduce many of these frustrations. Fewer parts, simpler construction, and more straightforward instructions allow builders to focus on enjoying the process rather than constantly solving problems. Less frustration often means more fun, and that's an important part of keeping people engaged in the hobby. And number 5, more confidence for newer builders. Confidence comes from success. When a beginner completes a model that looks good and didn't fight them at every step of the way, they're much more likely to think, hey, I can do this. That confidence encourages them to tackle another project, try a new technique, or move on to a more advanced kit. In many ways, a beginner kit serves as a stepping stone. Its greatest value isn't to fit just the finished model. It's giving someone the confidence to keep building. So when you look at it that way, beginner kits start to make a lot of sense. They're not trying to compete with the most detailed kits on the market. They're trying to make the hobby more enjoyable and accessible. And that raises another interesting question. Have experienced modelers forgotten what it actually feels like to be a beginner themselves? So let's look at that. Let's look at what experienced modelers forget or their change in perception. Number one, veteran builders often judge kits differently. The longer you've been in the hobby, the more your standards naturally evolve. Experienced modelers tend to notice things that beginner modelers may not even think about. Things like the accuracy of panel lines, the number of parts, interior detail, optional configurations, and whether the rivet pattern matches the actual aircraft. Those done in the right way are perfectly valid things to appreciate, but they're also the result of years of experience. It's easy to forget when you first started. You probably weren't counting rivets. You were just excited to finish a model that actually looks like the real thing. A veteran builder's expectations aren't wrong. They're just simply different from those of someone who's just beginning. Number two, new builders value different things. Beginners usually aren't looking for the most detailed or technically impressive kit on the market. They're looking for something they can successfully build. What they value most is often clear instructions, good fit, a manageable number of parts, a project they can actually finish, and most important, an enjoyable experience. For a newcomer, completing a model and feeling proud of it is far more important than whether a cockpit has every switch or a landing gear has every hydraulic line. The goal is confidence, not perfection. Number three, a kit that experts call basic may be ideal for learning. A kit doesn't have to challenge every skill you have to be a good kit. In fact, removing some of the complexity allows beginners to focus on learning the skills that really matter. Think of it like learning to drive. You don't start with an F1 car. A simpler kit gives builders room to practice, make mistakes, and improve without feeling overwhelmed. Once these fundamentals become second nature, moving on to a more advanced kit becomes less intimidating. Sometimes the best teaching skill isn't the most detailed kit. It's the one that lets you succeed. Now let's talk about some of the skills that beginner kits allow you to work on or practice on. Number one is painting. No matter how detailed a kit is, a good paint job is an enormous impact on the finished model. A beginner kit provides an excellent opportunity to practice airbrushing or brush painting, applying thin, even coats, masking, learning color modulation, and developing confidence with different paints. These are skills that transfer directly to every future project. Number two, assembly. Good assembly is one of the foundations of scale modeling. A beginner kit teaches how to remove parts cleanly from the sprues, test fit before gluing, apply the correct amount of cement, align major components, and build in logical subassemblies. These habits become automatic over time and often matter more than how many parts are in the box. Number 3, cleanup. Every model requires cleanup, no matter how expensive it is. Beginner kits allow builders to practice removing mold seams, sanding joints smooth, filling small gaps, cleaning up excess glue, and preparing surfaces for paint. These may not be the most glamorous parts of the hobby, but they're some of the most important. A cleanly assembled, simple kit often looks better than a highly detailed kit with visible seams and glue marks. And last but not least, finishing skills. The finishing stage is where the model comes alive. Every simple beginner kit can teach valuable techniques such as applying decals, using setting solutions, panel lining, washes, dry brushing, weathering, and applying flat and clear gloss coats. These finishing techniques often have a much greater impact on realism than adding a few extra parts in the cockpit. So when you stop looking at a beginner kit through the eyes of a veteran modeler, you start to see it differently. It's not trying to be the most detailed kit on the shelf. It's trying to teach the skills that every great modeler relies on. Painting, assembly, cleanup, and finishing are the foundation of this hobby. And a beginner kit gives you a chance to develop these skills without being overwhelmed by complexity. In many ways, it's not a lesser kit. It's a different kind of teacher. So let's look at the real question nobody asks. Instead of asking, is this a beginner kit? Ask, what is this kit trying to accomplish? For example, number 1, is this kit trying to accomplish a fun weekend build? Not every modeling project has to become a 6-month masterpiece. Sometimes you simply want to relax, enjoy the hobby, and create something that will be put on the shelf by the end of the weekend. A kit that's easy to assemble, fits well, and doesn't require dozens of hours of extra work can be incredibly satisfying. There's nothing wrong with building for enjoyment rather than chasing absolute perfection. In fact, many modelers intentionally choose simpler kits between larger projects as a way to recharge and avoid burnout. Sometimes the best kit is the one that reminds you why you enjoy building in the first place. Number 2, is it trying to be a learning platform? Some kits are perfect because they allow you to practice without ruining an expensive investment. Want to learn airbrushing? Try a beginner kit. Want to experiment with weathering? Use a beginner kit. Interested in trying oil paints, washes, pigments, or pre-shading for the first time? A beginner kit is a great place to experiment. Since the build itself is rather straightforward, you can devote your attention to developing new techniques. Even if something doesn't turn out as planned, you've gained valuable experience that you can apply to your next project. Every model doesn't have to be a showcase. Some can be classrooms. Number 3, is the kit trying to be a super detailed display piece? On the other end of the spectrum are kits designed to showcase the highest level of detail and accuracy. These kits often include hundreds of parts, highly detailed interiors, multiple configuration options, fine surface detail, and sometimes photo-etched or multimedia components. They're intended for builders who enjoy the challenge and are willing to invest the time into achieving the best possible result. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these kits. They simply serve a different purpose. They're designed for maximum realism, not maximum simplicity. Complexity isn't automatically better. It's simply appropriate for a different goal. And number 4, is the kit going to become a custom project? Sometimes a model isn't meant to be built straight from the box at all. Many builders intentionally choose a simpler or less expensive kit because they plan to add aftermarket parts, scratch build details, convert it into a different variant, create a diorama, experiment with unique paint schemes, or practice advanced modifications. In these cases, the kit is just a starting point. The builder knows they're going to be replacing or modifying many of the original parts anyway, so an extremely detailed kit may not offer much advantage. The best kit often is the one that best supports the project you have in mind. So once you start looking at kits this way, the whole debate begins to change. A beginner kit isn't trying to be a competition masterpiece, just as a highly detailed kit isn't trying to be a quick weekend project. They're designed with different goals in mind. And maybe that's the answer to the original question. Not whether beginner kits are worse, but whether we're judging them by the wrong standard. So are beginner kits actually worse? Well, sometimes, but often they're just simply different. A kit doesn't become bad because it's simple. In fact, some beginner kits are better at achieving their purpose than expensive, highly detailed kits. The quality of the finished model depends far more on the builder than the label on the box. So that brings me to a couple questions for you. What's the best beginner kit you've ever built? And what's the most disappointing advanced kit you've ever built? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And also don't forget that all the links, all the discount codes, and all the information you need about this channel can be found in the channel description. Now, the next video will be, I believe that it should be in here by then, so next video will be a review of the Gallery Air Hub airbrush holder. So that has been something that's been a year, well, close to a year in the making. I've been waiting for that to come back in stock. So that'll be an interesting video to watch. So that's all I have for this one, folks. And remember what we always say around here. Never stop pushing your modeling boundaries. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.